Street ahead of Fed speeches while oil drops on demand worries. Global stocks pulled back on Wednesday as investors awaited speeches from Federal Reserve officials, including Chair Jerome Powell, for further clues about the path of monetary policy. Meanwhile, oil prices sank to a 3-month low on growing concerns over weakening demand. In Asia, Japan's Topix index fell 1.2% as bank shares declined sharply amid falling bond yields. Chinese stocks fluctuated between gains and losses, with the Shanghai Composite ending 0.5% lower. Hong Kong's Hang Seng fell 1.2%. U.S. futures also retreated, with S&P 500 futures dropping 0.6% and Nasdaq 100 futures down 0.7%. In Europe, the Stoxx 600 lost 0.9% ahead of regional inflation and retail sales data. The moves follow a rally on Tuesday after some investors bet the Fed may slow its pace of rate hikes soon. But policymakers' latest remarks indicate they remain focused on taming high inflation. Fed Chair Powell, New York Fed President John Williams and others are slated to speak this week. Their commentary will be closely watched for any shift in tone on rates. For now, yields remain elevated. The 10-year Treasury yield steadied around 4.15% after falling sharply Tuesday. Meanwhile, oil extended declines as gasoline consumption in the U.S. is expected to fall over the next few weeks per AAA. West Texas Intermediate crude dropped 2.6% to $88.50 a barrel, its lowest since September. Slowing demand in China is also concerning. The world's largest crude importer has seen imports slide amid an economic slump and strict zero-COVID policies. However, major investment banks including Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan continue to forecast that oil prices will rebound to over $100 in coming months as supply tightens further with the EU's ban on Russian seaborne imports. In currency markets, the US dollar index traded flat at around 111 after rising during the previous session. The euro slipped 0.1% to $1.0066 ahead of Eurozone inflation data on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the Japanese yen gained 0.4% against the greenback, with US dollar to Japanese yen at 105.57. In China, the yuan edged up 0.1% against the dollar in offshore trading. Turning to equities, Japan's Nikkei 225 fell 1.25%, weighed by bank and financial stocks. The Topix banking sub-index lost 2.9% as falling bond yields pressured profit outlooks. Chinese shares were mixed after steep losses Tuesday amid disappointing trade figures. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Tech Index shed 1.5%, extending a sell-off in major internet firms. Tencent and Meituan each declined over 2%. Looking ahead, HSBC strategists predict global stocks could surge over 10% next year if the Fed pivots to less aggressive policy tightening, avoiding a hard economic landing. Before proceeding with our analysis, we would like to remind you that your support is very important to us. If you enjoy this video and find our content helpful and engaging, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. This helps us grow and provide you with even more quality content. Now, let's get back to the news on the financial markets and the latest updates. US dollar gains ground amid focus on central bank comments. The US dollar edged higher against major currencies on Wednesday, as investors kept their focus on upcoming speeches by central bank officials for clues about future monetary policy. The dollar index, which measures the greenback against a basket of currencies, rose 0.2% to 111.05 in early trading. Gains were led by a 0.5% increase versus the Australian dollar and a 0.25% rise against the New Zealand dollar over the past week. The dollar also climbed 0.8% on the British pound and 0.85% against the Canadian dollar during this period. Market participants are closely monitoring comments from central bank heads and policymakers in the US, Eurozone and UK this week. Investors are looking for any updates regarding the potential pace and breadth of future interest rate hikes to combat high inflation. US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell will give opening remarks at a Fed conference today. Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey is also slated to speak, while European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde will join the Eurogroup meeting in Brussels. Their messaging will be parsed for clues on monetary tightening plans. Long-term U.S. Treasury yields have been rising this week, supporting the dollar's strength. The benchmark 10-year yield hit 4.61% today, up nearly 1% from yesterday's close. Higher yields tend to attract investor capital from abroad, bolstering the dollar. The euro slipped 0.5% against the dollar this week, fetching $1.0532 in early Wednesday trading. September Eurozone retail sales data is due out later today. The common currency has struggled recently amid recession and energy crisis fears. Meanwhile, the pound lost 0.8% on the greenback week to date, last changing hands at $1.2281. Lingering concerns over the UK's economic and political uncertainty continue to weigh on sterling. The dollar gained 0.85% on the loonie, with US dollar to Canadian dollar hitting 1.3417. Canada's heavy reliance on energy and raw materials exports leaves it vulnerable to global slowdown risks. Against the yen, the dollar added 0.8% this week. US dollar to Japanese yen hovered around 105.68 after Japan reported a decline in its leading economic index for September. Ongoing monetary policy divergence between the Fed and Bank of Japan is capping the yen's gains. In commodities, gold prices retreated from 10-day highs amid the stronger dollar. Spot gold recently traded at $1,969 per ounce, down nearly 1% on the week. Bullion's inverse relationship with the dollar often sees it fall when the greenback strengthens. Key events this week: Eurozone retail sales, Wednesday. Germany CPI, Wednesday. BOE Governor Andrew Bailey speaks, Wednesday. New York Fed President John Williams speaks, Wednesday. Bank of Japan issues October Summary of Opinions, Thursday. BOE Chief Economist Hugh Pill speaks on the economy, Thursday. U.S. initial jobless claims, Thursday. Fed Chair Jerome Powell participates in panel on monetary policy challenges, Thursday. Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic and his Richmond counterpart Tom Barkin speak, Thursday. ECB President Christine Lagarde participates in fireside chat, Friday. U.S. University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment, Friday. Dallas Fed President Lori Logan and her Atlanta counterpart Raphael Bostic speak, Friday. Some of the main moves in markets. Stocks. S&P 500 futures fell 0.2% as of 6:12 a.m. London time. The S&P 500 rose 0.3%. Nasdaq 100 futures fell 0.2%. The Nasdaq 100 rose 0.9%. Japan's Topix fell 1.2%. Australia's S&P/ASX 200 rose 0.3%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng fell 0.7%. The Shanghai Composite fell 0.6%. Euro Stoxx 50 futures fell 0.2%. Currencies. The Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index was little changed. The euro fell 0.1% to $1.0686. The Japanese yen fell 0.2% to 150.68 per dollar. The offshore yuan was little changed at 7.2809 per dollar. The Australian dollar fell 0.1% to $0.6429. The British pound fell 0.2% to $1.2276. Cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin fell 0.8% to $35,229.52. Ether fell 0.9% to $1,877.25. Bonds. The yield on 10-year Treasuries advanced 3 basis points to 4.60%. Australia's 10-year yield declined 11 basis points to 4.58%. Commodities. West Texas Intermediate crude fell 0.4% to $77.09 a barrel. Spot gold fell 0.2% to $1,966.22 an ounce. In conclusion, we'd like to thank you for watching Market Briefing, market analysis and financial news. If you enjoyed our insights and found the information helpful, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to our channel to stay updated with future analyses. Thank you again for your support, and we'll see you soon with more interesting news. Remember, the information in this video is purely informational and does not constitute investment advice. Always consult with a professional before making financial decisions.